HOA President Denise Marple was still screaming as the sheriff's deputies dragged her away in her polka dot swim cap. My swimming pool was, quote, on community property. The ridiculous aspect was that she was wearing my robe, drenched in water, and her minivan was filled with pilfered patio furniture that bore my initials. The HOA newsletter was bigger than the phone book in Cedar Hollow, where I, Evan Lasker, a quiet accountant who just wanted to swim laps in peace, had moved to. Months prior, after taking one look at my recently redone backyard pool, Denise Marple, the self-described custodian of property values, concluded that it didn't belong to just me. Denise and I met for the first time on a typical Tuesday morning. Behind me, I heard someone clear their throat while I was measuring chemicals for the pool. A woman in her early 50s was standing there, dressed in what I can only characterize as a HOA uniform, which included pressed khakis, a polo shirt with cedar, Halley embroidery, and a clipboard that seemed to be fastened to her hand all the time. "Good morning," she began, her voice implying that it wasn't a pleasant one. "I am Denise Marple, the Cedar Hollow Homeowners Association president. We must talk about your pool," since I had already turned in all the necessary paperwork when I moved in. I introduced myself and inquired as to what specifically needed to be discussed. She was clearly impatient as she tapped her clipboard. "Every pool in Cedar Hollow needs to be registered for public use. Mr. Lasker, our bylaws chapter 12.4 has it." I informed her that I had carefully reviewed the bylaws and had not come across any such need. Private swimming pools continued to be private property. Her smile hardened into something like a concrete fissure. "Maybe you should read more attentively. A copy will be sent to your door." At precisely 6 a.m. the following morning, my doorbell rang not once but 15 times in quick succession. I could see Denise standing there through the peephole, holding a stack of papers thick enough to serve as a door barrier. When I opened the door, she said, "These are the updated bylaws. For your convenience. Section 12.4, Section 4 is highlighted." I turned to the designated section sheet. Although a paragraph regarding pool sharing was included, the report was obviously distinct from the others. Wider, newer, and not exactly the same font. I noticed that this page was added after the initial printing. She made an uncomfortable change. These changes were put to a vote by the board last month. I requested the minutes of the meeting. "They were being transcribed," she said. I requested the vote log. It was unanimous, she claimed. I inquired as to which board members were in attendance. Abruptly, she recalled a crucial appointment. The harassment intensified throughout the course of the following 2 weeks. Notices of violations would be affixed to my door when I woke. "Up, the pool's water is too blue. Transgression." After 8 p.m., the pool's equipment starts to hum. Unauthorized swimming was discovered at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Violation, the notices got stranger and stranger. According to one, I was utilizing too much water from the HOA irrigation system. Another said that, though my garden was totally gated off and out of sight from the street, the reflection from my pool was giving oncoming cars an annoying glare. The monitoring followed. Every time I hosted visitors, I noticed Denise using binoculars on her roof. She would take pictures of everyone who came into my property, saying she had to record illegal use of the community pool. One evening, Greg Patterson, my neighbor, came by with a warning. "Be careful around Denise," he cautioned quietly. She attempted to assert last year that the Johnsons' gazebo was constructed on HOA property. To disprove her, they had to employ a surveyor? I inquired as to the Johnsons' whereabouts. Greg's face grew serious. They shifted, claimed that the ongoing conflicts weren't worth it. However, I wasn't the kind to be harassed. I placed security cameras throughout my property, ensuring sure they recorded not only my yard but also any attempts by nearby houses to monitor it. The video I gathered throughout the course of the following week was excellent. At 5 in the morning, Denise scaled a ladder to look over my fence. While I was at work, Denise tried to measure my water meter. Denise gave the HOA landscaping staff instructions to cut branches in a certain way so that my backyard would have sight lines. After 3 weeks of this bullshit, I made the decision to host a small cookout for a few coworkers. It was a simple Saturday afternoon with 8 individuals having a good time. Denise, of course, showed up at my gate just minutes after the first visitor arrived. She waved another newly printed notice and declared, "This gathering exceeds the approved occupancy for a private pool. I politely told her that she was trespassing on my land and that there was no such limitation. In response, she snapped pictures of each of my visitors, saying she wanted proof for the HOA board. My coworker, a paralegal, asked Denise if she had the legal right to take pictures of people on private property. Denise promised that this wasn't over before, backing off and spouting something about community norms. She was correct. The HOA was performing an emergency safety compliance check of all the neighborhood's pools. According to a certified letter I got the following Monday, an examination of my pool was planned for that. Thursday at 2 p.m., I waited with my security cameras filming while taking the day off from work. Denise showed up at precisely 2 p.m. with a truck marked Cedar Hollow Maintenance and 3 men dressed in work uniforms. After looking over the purported county order, the officer saw right once that it was false. The county seal was pixelated and photocopied. The name on the signature line didn't belong to any county employee. "Ma'am," said the officer softly, "it is a crime to forge official documents." Denise's face turned white. "There must be some misunderstanding," she sputtered, adding that she was merely attempting to enforce the HOA guidelines. Unimpressed, the officer instructed the maintenance team to immediately cease draining the pool. However, the harm was already done. The pump apparatus had been tampered with, and half of the water in my pool was gone. I now had legal justification for both civil and criminal action. When I presented the proof to my lawyer, Michael Brennan, he was so excited that he could hardly contain his joy. He shook his head and stated, "Forged signatures, fraudulent government documents, trespassing, and destruction of property. This goes beyond simple HOA overreach. Criminal fraud is what this is." We began by submitting a formal complaint to the Office of the County Prosecutor. The falsified County Health Department directive caught their attention in particular. It found out that they took impersonating a government agency quite seriously. We also complained to the State Real Estate Commission in the meanwhile. In our state, homeowners associations are subject to stringent rules, and Denise had broken nearly all of them. The ensuing inquiry was in-depth and enlightening. The financial records of the HOA were subpoenaed by the prosecutor's office, and the results were astounding. Under the guise of community improvements, Denise had been diverting HOA monies for personal expenses. Her home's fresh landscaping was funded by her HOA dues. The HOA also paid for the expert landscape lighting that solely lit her property. But when they learned that she had been trying to increase HOA authority over private property across the area, it was the true bombshell. False liens, fake easement paperwork, and even attempts to claim parts of homeowners' parcels as common areas were all present. My pool predicament was only the beginning. It seems that she had determined that if she could simply find a way to take it, my corner lot, with its bigger than typical backyard, would make the ideal community amenity. Patricia Delgado, the state investigator, was a straightforward woman who spent 3 hours interviewing me about my experiences. She showed me paperwork that Denise had written but had not yet submitted, such as a claim that my pool had been constructed unlawfully on a common area and that my property encroached on HOA territory. According to Patricia, the survey results unequivocally demonstrate this is untrue. However, she might have gotten away with making these accusations if you hadn't retaliated. Many homeowners lack the financial means to engage in protracted legal disputes. After the prosecutor became aware of the extent of Denise's actions, the criminal case proceeded swiftly. She was accused with numerous counts of forgery, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Every falsified paper was counted separately. Every HOA payment that was stolen was a new one. To handle the situation, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. About 60 other homeowners who had all fallen prey to Denise's schemes in one way or another joined me at the event. The stories that surfaced were amazing. One family was informed that their driveway needed to be ripped up because it was too wide for grass that was allegedly 4 inches too long. Another person received a fine of thousands of dollars. Denise's dismissal and full cooperation with all inquiries were unanimously approved by the board. Additionally, they decided to appoint an impartial auditor to examine every HOA decision made while she was in office. Denise's attorney attempted to work out a plea agreement as the criminal case developed, but the prosecutor wasn't amenable. To a relaxed approach, it was impossible to ignore the point at which the falsified official documents had gone. In conjunction with the criminal case, I filed a civil claim. We filed a lawsuit alleging intentional emotional distress, harassment, property destruction, and trespassing. The evidence from my security camera, which revealed Denise's numerous attempts to illegally enter and monitor my property, was especially damning. We discovered much more unsettling information during the discovery phase. In order to send herself complaints about other homeowners, Denise had set up phony email accounts. She then used these complaints as justification for her behavior. She had intended to use a combination of deceptive tactics and falsified documentation to gradually seize control of several properties. Her financial condition rapidly deteriorated. Her savings were depleted by the cost of the criminal defense and civil litigation. To recoup the stolen money, the HOA filed a lawsuit against her. Lawsuits were filed by other homeowners. She was soon in danger of going bankrupt. The criminal trial proceeded quickly. Her attorney's attempts to portray her as an aggressive but well-intentioned HOA president failed due to the overwhelming evidence. She was found guilty on all counts by the jury. During sentence, the judge didn't mince words because it was obvious that the abuse of power sickened him. Denise was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and a $200,000 reparation order. As the bailiff got ready to arrest her, she stood there in stunned stillness. However, the narrative didn't finish there. Denise had to sell up her valuables in order to cover her court fees and restitution. I couldn't pass up the chance when her house went up for sale. I bought her lot for significantly less than market value when I went to the auction. All of the other bidders were locals who were aware of the story, and they appeared pleased to give it to me. I requested a variance to increase my property line after obtaining Denise's lot. The city swiftly approved it, maybe feeling bad about their seal being faked in the attempted deception. Additionally, I was successful in my petition to purchase a strip of underutilized HOA greenbelt that abutted my new home, claiming that the HOA had become untrustworthy in its management of common areas. In an area where most lots are only a fifth of that size, I now possess almost an entire acre, with a deck that stretches over what was once Denise's beloved garden. My pool area has been transformed into a fully functional outdoor entertaining area. Neither I nor anyone else in the area is unaware of the irony. The experience has prompted the current HOA board to implement stringent oversight procedures and open regulations. They even sent official apologies to every homeowner for the acts of the previous government. Regarding Denise, she relocated to a completely other town following her release from prison. It was reported that she attempted to join the HOA board at her new condominium complex, but her application was respectfully turned down. Evidently, dozens of news stories about the Cedar Hollow affair can be found by just searching for her name on Google. Thanks to my increased property, I can now enjoy an even nicer view while swimming laps in my pool every morning. I occasionally remember that first morning when Denise arrived with her clipboard, certain that she could intimidate me into ceding my personal belongings. She never dreamed that I would buy her home, and she would spend 2 years behind bars as a result of her small-time power grab.